If you're an artist or a music executive who's just getting started in this music business, chances are that you want to build a really strong, profitable label. But do you have a plan for really expanding your label based on intellectual property? Because the problem is that I see right now is that you're only focused on music, which is why you can't understand how to expand, because your mindset is right here focused on the music. So you need to know how to build a label with a focus on intellectual property. Now, trigger warning. I'm going to ruffle some feathers in today's video, but I'm telling you right now, if you are a DIY record label owner, meaning you're a self-run record label as an artist or whatever, you can utilize a lot of these tips to help you so that we can kind of calm the ruffled feathers I'm going to bring in a minute. All right. And if you are a record label that's going to sign some people, you definitely need to look at every single slide and look at how you can adapt and adopt these things to the process that you have now, especially if things aren't really working out the way you want them to work out. This is the long-term play, everybody. I know the intro is long, but let's unpack all of it coming up right here on the Music Money Makeover Show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Music Money Makeover Show. My name is Casey Graham. Let's hop right in. So here's what I'd do first. I'd sign a socially native, versatile female singer to a record and co-publishing contract. You first heard this word socially native on a video I did about managers that I know a lot of people didn't watch, but you can go back and see what I said there about socially native. Well, we're going to talk about it right here, because socially native means an artist who is not scared of being vulnerable in front of the camera while expressing themselves via social media. This artist will already understand that social media will be our key to our progress, and we wouldn't be able to survive well without it. The singer would be a female because I love yin and yang relationships. Remember, I'm signing. This is what I would do, right? I love yin and yang relationships. And just as a personal preference, I'd sign a spunky singer who has an alto type of voice, singing with passion in the genres of soul, funk, and R&B with a splash of rock, right? So kind of like a modern day Shaka Khan, but not so funky, with a little bit of, a little more polish and calm to the R&B side. But you get what I'm saying. Like if we could fuse those genres together, that's what I would sign right there. A lot of fire, excellent stage presence and show performance, a showstopper. That's what I would sign, right? To get the most bang out for my buck on the contract. Now, I develop a story for the artist to present on social media. This is something that a lot of people still don't understand, but I'm going to just break my process down a little bit here. Developing a storyline with the artist at the beginning of the process is key, because from the very beginning, the cameras are rolling. If I'm signing you, we rolling the cameras to document all this stuff from the very beginning for what we could get. As we begin to unfold our narrative via social media, we must revisit every story loop and plan in order for the fans and viewers to be engaged. Oh, and by the way, all of the footage will belong to the record label for future licensing. Let that sink in for a minute. Remember, I'm the record label, so I need intellectual property. That's how I survive. You get what I'm saying? Now, licensing would be my weapon of choice. Licensing is where the record company makes money, and if the songs aren't suitable for sync, then I know we'll have a hard time breaking public consciousness. You know what I mean? Because sync, it gives us extra meat on the bone, if you will. That lets me know that our songs are well-rounded for a lot of areas. Now, every song ain't got to be suitable for sync, but I need my main songs to be suitable for sync, because we will be able to appeal to a lot of audiences. All right. So therefore, sync would be one of my main priorities of exploitation beyond social media. Playlisting is a given, and radio is so far off in the woods that if someone were to pick up the songs or singles that I had, I'd be appreciative of it. And if it made sense for me to actually run the radio play because the song actually took off and it's like, yo, we really need to add radio to the mix, this is our sprinkles on top, then I would do it. Lastly, retail playlisting is a must, especially for our next step. Now, I want to create as many tasteful alternative versions of songs as I could. Hear me out. The name of the game is to get as many masters and compositions as you can from a project. So therefore, I would create a remix project and an acoustic project, right? And these different versions can be used in many different establishments and venues across the world for many different use cases. Lastly, I get some of my favorite underground YouTube singers to cover my artist records, and I'd own the covers. This is all for publishing purpose. A 10-song LP could be flipped into 40 masters and compositions easily. Easily. Name of the game is intellectual property. and we need as much of it as we can. So if I take an album and I flip it with all these different versions and different people that I know that I'm going to hand select to cover it, you get what I'm saying? Then I own the masters, and then I own the publishing already. You see how this is working? You see how we're stacking the value before we even gotten too far down the road. We know where we're going to pull our value from. Now, I'd make sure every right was exploited for maximum payment. You have to. Because we have so many masters, we need to make sure that they are properly exploited or exploited properly for maximum revenue in each use case. Everything will not rise to the top, but every master will have its place in the sun, which will collectively create a massive amount of revenue for the songs. So every song, like I said, every song is not going to be like just, oh my God, over the top. We're planting seeds in the garden, and some will grow big and some won't. But everything is going to yield something. And that's the whole point. All right. Now, when the artist is ready, I'd finance the tours with the rights to filming. I'd become the finance agency, the tour support for the artists when they're ready for touring. However, I would only finance the most profitable touring markets that would yield me a return. Then I'd film the entire tour and gain rights to the touring documentary because, again, intellectual property, this is what we need, we want. We don't have a huge roster of artists, so we need to own a lot of stuff here, okay? Now, I'd own all the rights to merch designs and imaging under the terms of the contract. Well, term of the contract. For however long the artist is in the contract, this is whatever we design within that term will be ours, okay? Every merch design, poster, and right to use the logo to sell unreleased designs or merchandise would belong to the label at the approval of the artist, of course, because we want to make sure that it's authentic to the artist. Now, this would allow me to increase the amount of intellectual property the label owns massively. And of course, the artist would get a portion of the revenue of the merch sales. Even if we're selling the merch after they've left the label, they will still get rights to royalties in the sales of merch that we have sold that's unreleased when we do our unreleased stuff. Okay. Now, exiting. At this point, if I only sign the artist for 2 albums, the label will own almost 100 masters and compositions, 2 touring documentaries, creation footage for 2 albums, merchandise design for 2 albums, and tour designs for 2 albums. And if we did our jobs correctly and say the artist locked in over just, a modest 1 million followers across the board, we could sell the rights and contracts for 5 to 6 times the value, and that's just lowballing it. Because if our fan base is really engaged at 1 million followers, we're doing a lot of damage and we're making a lot of money. But at that point, I don't really think I'd sell, but I had to put an exit, plan in here. So there you have it. Now, what about the artist? Hey, I know you asking, artists. It is a record label. We pay for the creation of everything, so therefore we will issue, as an artist, we'll issue the artist royalties. We'll make sure they get paid, but they will have to recoup these costs. I know I didn't say or mention anything about costs being cross-collateralized. I don't know. I'm just putting stuff out on things that I would do. Now, would they get a piece of the sale? More than likely not, unless we've given the contract time to recoup, or depending on how gracious we are or how far they are out from recouping, we may eat the debt, which would be our holding costs on the sale, and allow the artist to go ahead and start receiving all of the royalties from everything, which would be good, which I think would be a good option. Instead of giving them a portion of the sale, we would cancel the debt, and then they could start receiving royalties, which I think that would be dope. Now, do you think this is wrong? I think it's a bit one-sided. However, can you really argue with the entity that holds the debt? No, you can't, because remember, you didn't finance this stuff in the first place. Now, I know you worked hard, but we had to put a lot of human capital to work here. We had to hire a lot of people. You know what I mean? And we don't have to do business like a normal record label. We don't. We don't have to use the regular contracts that record labels use. And I wouldn't. Independently, I wouldn't. You know what I mean? But you really can't argue with the person that's paying for everything. How could you? Now, if you want to be independent about this thing or really, really try your hand at this yourself, you can. Because if you're an artist, a producer, a singer, songwriter, new music exec who wants to build your record label or publishing company in 60 days or less, without searching all over the internet for the how-tos, you can do that now with my 60-day record label course. We're going to build a strong, robust LLC foundation for you to run this whole operation on. And then you'll learn how to play the game via contract. And then you'll be able to collect your international and domestic record and publishing royalties all in one house without the middleman taking 15%. Now, if this sounds like you, great. But if you trip and fall through the process, don't hesitate to book a call with me. I'll help you up and get you through to the finish line so that you can become the master of your own house that you want to be in the first place. You can jump right in right down below. But if this is your first time watching the channel, please grab the free step below, 10 major steps to increase your record label's profits. A free split sheet is included with the download. Now, if you make it this far in your journey, if you're an artist run record label accomplishing this, then you had a great run. Please keep running. And if you're a company, then you've got a great model to optimize, because obviously you're not going to exit at 5 to 6 times unless you're just tired. Unless you just said, hey, I did it to say I could do it. All right. Now, not doing it this way doesn't mean the end of the world, but the intellectual property industry, aka the media industry, is hard, and everybody will not make millions from it. So I'm not saying you got to go at it the way I did, but I'm saying that you need to put a focus on intellectual property, because that is how a record label makes money. All right, music money makers. So if you were struggling with how you were going to actually build a functioning record label, you now got more detailed tips to do so. This is not something I normally talk about on the channel, but I'm glad I just, brought it forth. So music money makers, if you make music, you should always make money. Log on to musicmoneymakeover.com, jump into the 60-day record label course, especially to build a foundation for all the stuff we talked about today. Grab the free stuff below, book a call on musicmoneymakeover.com, and I'll see you next time. Peace.